Okay, so it's my weekly update, and thank you for dropping by. This past week I've been busy with two projects. One project was the Dundurn Castle woodblock print. If some of you were following me on Twitter last weekend, you would have noticed I was posting photos of the process throughout the day. This project started last year. I was here in the summertime and did my sketch work of Dundurn Castle. Then because the summertime is a very busy time for me, I try to get as many sketches in as possible before the weather changes, and then I use the winter months to basically flesh out and develop whatever projects are. In this particular case, Dundurn Castle, I'm just returning to it now, and it's a subject of a large woodblock print, and my goal is to this is going to be a little bit different than my previous woodblock prints. I tend to like black and white. I personally like black and white woodblock prints. I find they're bold, they kind of have a rough quality to them. There's no illusion that you're trying to create a painting or a photograph of an object. This is an interpretation of a building, a landscape, and that barrier to recreating a realism is what I find attractive, because I have a natural bent to try to recreate the photograph, and that's really, you know, if you're gonna do you want to create photorealism, you know, I respect and admire a lot of photorealist painters, but for me personally, as I've struggled over the years with that issue, my view is that if that was my goal, then I should go into specialize in photography only, and don't try to do painting or printing. So printing is a way for me to have actually a barrier between me and trying to create a photorealistic image and forcing me to interpret that. So that's sort of why I moved into printing about 7 years ago now. And so I find it very attractive, the rough quality, the black and white image. But people do like color, and so to try to address that kind of interest in my work that focuses on color and more colorful works of art, I am doing this building in at least 2 to 3 colors. Now, if you saw last week, you saw me print it out in black, the work, and that was only to see if I had got all the lines correct, had done it errors, skipped a spot, not carved out anything. So, but the actual building will probably be an off yellow, a cream color. Then the grass will have the grass will be 1 color, the trees will probably be 2 colors, and then the sky 1 to 2 colors more. So each one of those colors will require a separate block of wood. Now, because I'm also working large, that entails 2 things. First, I'm using plywood with hardwood veneer on top, and normally I use hardwood, normal plank of hardwood, which is between 6 to 7 inches wide, and then the plank is whatever you cut it at. And you can glue these woods together and create a larger plank of hardwood that way, and that's probably best. But I don't really have a lot of wood making equipment at home. It's not the focus of where I put my money, and if I had a dedicated wood space with ventilation, maybe that's something I would do. But at the moment, because I only do this part of the year when there's good weather, and I work outside, so that entails then moving to a plywood with a veneer cover on it, and then I use power tools just because I can use because these are larger pieces of work. I can move quite quickly. Now, I don't have a lot of patience for stuff. After a month or so working on a project, I tend to get bored of it and want to move on to another project. So there's lots of uncompleted projects around. It's stuff that I will come to a year from now or so, or a few years from now, and that's not uncommon for a lot of artists. But it is a consideration, and it is one reason why I use power tools to move through the work. It may not be ideal, and that may not be fully in the tradition of woodblock printing, but that's the way it is. So for the next month, I'm going to be working on the various panels. So I've done Dundurn Castle, the building. Now I have to do the trees and the landscape's got to be carved out. Then I have to do the sky in the back, and I have to determine how many layers of color will each of those involved, and whether I'm going to use a key print, which is essentially sort of a black outline where the colors are in between. I'm probably not. I'm probably just going to block out the shapes of the colors and use that to convey the image, but that's still a decision I have time to decide on. So that's that, and I've also been working on a canvas curtain backdrop, so that when there's times where I'm either working in the garage and I don't have a very appealing background, or it's in the winter, I can have this backdrop that indicates who I am and gives you an idea of what my art is, and sort of like a theater curtain behind me with the information about who I am and my website and a sample of my blogs. So now I'm going into darkness, so I'm hoping that that I don't get too dark in this picture. So, and I haven't posted any of that stuff yet. I filmed it and documented it. It's going to be a time-lapse work, but I haven't had time to actually get it up onto the website, and I will do that hopefully for this update. Dundurn Castle is a very interesting location. I find it very fascinating. I've come back here a number of times. I've done a number of my updates from this location, and that's because this is one of the oldest buildings in the city. It built between 1832 and 1834, and the McNabb I find a very interesting character. Now I know that he's lionized and that sort of thing, but I find him more as a wheeler dealer. I find him more similar to the character in Hells on Wheels, Duran. Charles Duran, I can't remember his first name, and where he's a bit of a confidence man, and very much, if you look at the early Hamilton history, that was very much what the city was like. McNabb would depend on a group of investors to invest in his projects, and if they felt he was going to go bankrupt or didn't have the money or wasn't able to complete the project, they would pull their money out in a second. It was all based on personal relationships. This is before banking really was well established for sort of, in a way, a frontier town like Hamilton was in the 1830s, and banks, actually, a lot of banks, the CIBC, for example, partly came of that to finance business ventures of their original stockholders. So it was almost used as a private piggy bank. That's what I've read, and that's my understanding. So it's a very so it was very important to project confidence and wealth and that sort of thing. And this is, if anything is, this is, saying, look who I am, look how much money I have, you should trust me, you can invest in me. And that's really how I kind of view the home here. It's I find it really quite enjoyable, and it's also a sort of above the shop sort of affair, because if you go to the rear of the property, what you'll see is now it's a little bit more grown over, and the perspective is not as clear as it once was, but he has a vista of his holdings. The railroad tracks that run below the castle, he had a port where people could come into the city, he had a grain elevator, he had repair shops and manufacturing shops to maintain and operate his railroad and his other ventures, and and so forth. So basically, most of his wealth that was tied up right below his feet, so he was almost like above the shop looking over his holdings, and I find that kind of charming. And another reason why I kind of like the guy, and that he's not you know, just a pump up local aristocrat. And the other thing too is, you know, he was status conscious too, you know, like the building you see here has been altered. Originally, the columns that you see in the front wouldn't have been there. They were added in, I believe, 1846 when his daughter got married, and she got married to some English from the English nobility over there, landed gentry, and he wanted to put his best foot forward and make the place actually look like more like a castle than just a country home. So he hired a very fancy architect to update his building, and this is him putting his best foot forward. And I find, again, that a very endearing quality. You know, you getting your lawn fixed, the hedges done, you know, maybe put in a new a patio in the back, so when they come over, the backyard looks spectacular and that sort of thing. So this is very much, you know, the same sort of thing happens today was happening back then. So it was a very I find that a very human quality, and I find that an endearing quality about him. You know, if my family was here in the 1830s, they would be one of the guys who would be building the place. They you know, so you know, we'd be in a shack somewhere on the edge of town, you know, so it's not like we would ever be living here. You know, when we dream about being in the past, we always think we're going to be the rich people. I can tell you, most of my family's always been poor, so you know, we're poor working class people in Hamilton. So you know, we would have 150 years ago, we wouldn't have been allowed on the property unless we were a tradesperson working in the back there. So but nevertheless, I still find that that sort of an endearing quality, his foibles and what he needs to show off. So anyhow, that's that. I'm losing the light, and so there. I'll do a next episode if I can get some light.